Welcome to another Culture Cafe, a weekly time capsule of literary, film, and music history. This is for the week of November 9th. If you enjoy these weekly forays into culture history, be sure to subscribe to my channel for notifications of when new videos are posted. If you like this or previous episodes, hit the like button or drop a comment down below. That being said, let's dive into this week's historical events. November 9th, 1928 marks the birthday of Anne Sexton. She was an American poet known for her highly personal confessional verse. She won the Pulitzer Prize for Live or Die in 1967. Themes in her poetry include the suicidal tendencies, her depression, and intimate details of her private life. She also wrote 4 children's books with Maxine Kumin. Sexton began working as a model and then worked as a teacher, a lecturer of writing, eventually becoming a professor of creative writing. On October 4th, 1974, Sexton had lunch with Cumin to revise galleys for Sexton's manuscript of The Awful Rowing Toward God, scheduled for publication in March of 1975. Later that day, she died by suicide at the age of 45. In an interview over a year before her death, she explained she had written the first drafts of The Awful Rowing Toward God in 20 days, with 2 days out for despair and 3 days out in a mental hospital. She went on to say that she would not allow the poems to be published before her death. She was also, by the way, the subject of Peter Gabriel's song Mercy Street on his So album. He dedicated the song to her, the title being from her play by the same name. November 9th, 1953, modernist poet Dylan Thomas died due to a severe case of bronchitis. The poet, who is most remembered for his poem Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night and a play for voices titled Under Milkwood. He was only 39 at the time of his death. November 9th, 1967, the very first issue of Rolling Stone magazine was published. Founded by Jan Wenner and music writer Ralph J. Gleason, the then San Francisco-based magazine focused its reporting on music and politics. Wenner and Gleason explained the inspiration behind the publication's name in their inaugural issue, which most of you probably know, which featured John Lennon on the cover wearing his costume for the film How I Won the War. Quote, "It comes from an old saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss," they wrote. Muddy Waters used the name for a song he wrote. The Rolling Stone took their name from Muddy Waters' song, and Like a Rolling Stone was the title of Bob Dylan's first rock and roll record. We have begun a new publication reflecting what we see are the changes in rock and roll. November 9th, 1989 marks the date that the Berlin Wall fell. Officially known as the Anti-Fascist Protection Rampart, it was a guarded concrete barrier that encircled West Berlin from 1961 to 1989, separating it from East Berlin and the German Democratic Republic, also known as East Germany. Construction of the Berlin Wall was commenced by the government of the GDR on August 13, 1961. It included guard towers placed along large concrete walls, accompanied by a wide area later known as the quote, death strip, that contained anti-vehicle trenches, beds of nails, and other defenses. The primary intention for the wall's construction was to prevent East German citizens from fleeing to the west. The Berlin Wall fell during the Peaceful Revolution, marking the beginning of the destruction of figurative Iron Curtain, as East Berlin transit restrictions were overwhelmed and discarded. Sections of the wall were breached, and planned deconstruction began the following June. It was one of the series of events that started the fall of communism in Central and Eastern Europe. The fall of the inner German border took place shortly afterward. An end to the Cold War was declared at the Malta summit in early December, and German reunification took place in October the following year. November 10th, 1940, we all know that Walt Disney was the force behind Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, but did you know that Walt Disney himself was a giant rat? Yes, as in snitch. It's true. On this day, Disney began serving as an informant for J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, the Los Angeles office, to report back to allegedly subversive activities in Hollywood. Also, coinciding with his anti-Semitic worldview, he was a member of the isolationist, quote, America First movement and flirted with pro-Nazi elements before World War II. America First. Why does that sound familiar? November 10th, 1950, American author William Faulkner was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Although mostly unknown at the time of his award, Faulkner is now a pillar of American literature, with his novels The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, and Light in August being widely read. His first ever published story, A Rose for Emily, is also one of the most popular and widely taught short stories in literature classes. Like many others, A Rose for Emily was my introduction to Faulkner's writing. November 11th, 1821, Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky was born in Moscow, Russia. Despite being imprisoned and nearly executed for supporting banned literature, Dostoevsky was released and eventually wrote novels such as Crime and Punishment, The Brothers Karamazov, and The Idiot. Dostoevsky's literature helped shape existentialist views and continue to be widely read to this day. In fact, his Notes from the Underground, a novella published in 1864, is considered one of the first works of existential literature. November 11th, 1922 marks the birthday of Kurt Vonnegut. He was an American novelist, short story writer, satirist, and graphic artist. He's best known for his books which blend satire, black comedy, and speculative fiction. His published works include 14 novels, 3 short story collections, 5 plays, and 5 nonfiction works over a 50-plus year career. This includes the novels Player Piano, Cat's Cradle, and Slaughterhouse-Five, and of course Breakfast of Champions. Further works have been published posthumously. Born and raised in Indianapolis, Vonnegut attended Cornell University but withdrew in January of 1943 and enlisted in the U.S. Army. As part of his training, he studied mechanical engineering at the Carnegie Institute of Technology and the University of Tennessee. He was then deployed to Europe to fight in World War II and was captured by the Germans during the Battle of the Bulge. He was interned at Dresden, where he survived the Allied bombing of the city in a meat locker of the slaughterhouse where he was imprisoned. Kurt Vonnegut died in Manhattan on the night of April the 11th, 2007, as a result of brain injuries incurred several weeks prior in a fall at his brownstone home. He was 84. November 11th, 1966, cornetist Don Cherry records the album Where is Brooklyn with Pharoah Sanders on tenor saxophone, Henry Grimes on for the Blue Note label. In 2022, the Aesthetics label reissued the album along with Cherry's live album Eternal Rhythm on the compilation Where is Brooklyn and Eternal Rhythm Revisited. November 13th, 1902, Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness is published as a standalone novella for the first time after being previously published in serialized form. The book raises questions about imperialism and is considered by many one of the best works published in the 20th century. The novella was not a big success during Conrad's life. When it was published as a single volume in 1902 with 2 novellas, Youth and End of the Tether, it received the least commentary from critics. In fact, Conrad himself did not consider it to be particularly notable. However, by the 1960s, it was a standard assignment in many college and high school English courses. It is also the basis for Francis Ford Coppola's epic war film Apocalypse Now, initially released in 1979, starring Marlon Brando, Martin Sheen, and Robert Duvall. November 13th, 1959, Cecil Taylor Quintet with John Coltrane and Kenny Dorham records Stereo Jazz. The album was also released in mono as Hard Driving Jazz because, well, of course, you can't call a mono recorded album stereo jazz, right? The album was later reissued for some reason under Coltrane's name in 1962 as Coltrane Time. Compact disc reissues appeared on the Blue Note Records label credited to Coltrane. It is the only known recording featuring both Coltrane and Cecil Taylor. November 14th, 1883, Robert Louis Stevenson's story Treasure Island was published as a standalone novel by Cassell and Company. The novel has had an enormous influence on both literature and culture as it established popular pirate perceptions, such as marking spots on map with an X and one-legged pirates with parrots on their shoulders. The coming-of-age novel has been recreated and dramatized more than most other stories. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise would probably not have even existed without Stevenson's Treasure Island. November 14th, 1976, Network, starring Faye Dunaway, William Holden, and Peter Finch, premieres in Los Angeles and New York. Network is a 1976 American comedy drama film directed by Sidney Lumet and written by Patty Chayefsky. It depicts a television network struggling with poor ratings until the nightly live broadcast of its longtime news anchor, Howard Beale, played by Peter Finch, inadvertently showcases his breakdown into increasingly psychotic behavior, which makes his show a surprise hit. Produced by Metro Goldwyn Mayer and released by United Artists, Network was a commercial success, earning $23.7 million on a $3.8 million production budget. Network received widespread critical acclaim, with particular praise for its screenplay and performances. At the 49th Academy Awards, it received 10 nominations, including Best Picture, and won 4: Best Actor for Finch posthumously, Best Actress for Dunaway, Best Supporting Actress for Beatrice Straight, and Best Original Screenplay for Chayefsky. In 2000, Network was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being, quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In 2002, it was inducted into the Producers Guild of America Hall of Fame as a film that has, quote, set an enduring standard for American entertainment. In 2005, the Writers Guild of America voted Chayefsky's screenplay one of the 10 greatest in history. In 2007, the film was 64th among the 100 greatest American films as chosen by the American Film Institute. November 14th, 1986, the album Benny Carter Meets Oscar Peterson is recorded. It features Benny Carter on alto saxophone and Oscar Peterson on piano, with Joe Pass on guitar. It was released the following year on the Pablo label, with Norman Granz as producer. November 15th, 1935, the film A Night at the Opera premieres. A Night at the Opera is a 1935 American comedy film starring the Marx Brothers, Groucho, Harpo, and Chico, and featuring Kitty Carlisle, Alan Jones, Margaret Dumont, and Sig Rumen. It was the first of 5 films the Marx Brothers made under contract for MGM after their departure from Paramount Pictures, and the first after Zeppo left the act. The film was written by George S. Kaufman and Maury Riskind and directed by Sam Wood. One of MGM's biggest hits at the 1935 box office, A Night at the Opera was selected in 1993 for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It is also included in the 2007 update of AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies at number 85, and previously in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs 2000 showing at number 12. I've said this before, but one of my life's purposes is to make sure more people know who the Marx Brothers were and their influence on modern comedy. I would definitely recommend this movie, but also strongly recommend their earlier films such as Duck Soup and Horse Feathers. November 15th, 1959, 4 members of the Clutter family were savagely murdered in their home in Holcomb, Kansas. The brutal crime, which was seemingly done without motive, inspired Truman Capote to investigate. For years, he reported on the investigation and extensively interviewed the 2 murderers. The material was eventually transformed into his groundbreaking work, In Cold Blood. This book mixed nonfiction with narrative style, resulting in a new genre which Capote dubbed, quote, the nonfiction novel. The book was adapted into a film in 1967 directed by Richard Brooks and starred Robert Blake, Scott Wilson, and John Forsythe. Pretty eventful week, wasn't it? It almost makes up for the last 2. That about wraps it up for this week's Culture Cafe. Thanks for joining me, and if you enjoy this channel and would like to support my endeavor in a small way, there are 2 ways in which you can do that. One, you can buy me a coffee, a virtual coffee rather, at buymeacoffee.com. I also have an Etsy shop with Coffee Before Pants merchandise. As usual, I will put the links down below. And remember to support your local independent bookstore and local public library. As always, be safe, be kind, and keep reading.
Who are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Who are you?
I'm fine, too, but you can't come in unless you give the password.
Oh, what is the password?
Oh, no, you gotta tell me. Hey, I tell what I do. I give you 3 guesses. It's the name of a fish.
Is it Mary?
That's no fish.
She isn't. Well, she drinks like one. Let me see. Is it sturgeon?
Hey, you crazy. Sturgeon, he's a doctor who cuts you open when you're sick. Now, I give you one more chance.
I got it. Haddock.
That's so funny. I got a headache, too.
What do you take for a haddock?
Well, now, sometimes I take aspirin, or sometimes I take a calomel.
Say, I'd walk a mile for a calomel.
You mean chocolate calomel. I like that, too, but you know, guess it. Hey, what's the matter? You don't understand English? You can't come in here unless you say swordfish. Now, I'll give you one more guess.
Swordfish. Swordfish. I think I got it. Is it swordfish?
That's it. You guess it.
Pretty good, huh?
Fine. You guess it.